We walked the long path, lined with shouting, nightmare faces, nightmare voices. Inside the school, there are eyes that glare and eyes that are distant.
Historically, education for African Americans in the United States has been characterized by systemic racial segregation and gross disparities in resources, facilities, and opportunities compared to their white counterparts. In the southern states, where segregation was most rigidly enforced, African American students attended separate schools that were often underfunded, overcrowded, and lacking in basic amenities. These schools received fewer resources and had inferior facilities compared to the schools for students of other races. Textbooks, materials, and other educational resources for African American schools were outdated and insufficient. Teachers in these schools were typically paid less than their white counterparts, and the schools themselves were chronically underfunded.
We wish for our friends. We wish for our old, laughing selves. We hold our heads up, hold our tears in. The grown-ups have said, we must be brave, that only the children can save the country now.
In 1876, Dallas operated a segregated school district. In 1892, Dallas established its first high school for African American pupils. In 1911, the school was enlarged and named the Dallas Colored High School. The school was moved in 1922 to larger quarters designed by famed Dallas architects Lang and Winchell, and renamed Booker T. Washington High School after the African-American education pioneer Booker T. Washington. For many years, it was the only Dallas high school that allowed students of color, and during its first 17 years of operation, the often overcrowded school served every African-American student in Dallas County. In 1937, the Dallas School Board appointed a building committee to find land for a new high school for African Americans. Lincoln High School was one of the largest campuses in the city, with 20 classrooms, chemistry and physics laboratories, auditoriums, cafeteria, and a library in the main building. In January 1939, Lincoln High School opened its doors for the first time with 1,200 students and 31 teachers. Because of extreme overcrowding, many of these students had come from the only previous school for blacks, Booker T. Washington. The segregation of schools continued officially until the Brown versus Board of Education decision in Topeka, Kansas on May 17, 1954. In 1954, the Supreme Court issued the Brown versus Board of Education decision that stated that separate public schools for black and white students and denying black children equal opportunity was unconstitutional. The NAACP asked for desegregation to begin in Dallas and was told that no, the ruling by the Supreme Court was one of philosophy and policy and not a directive or a decree directing that segregation be done.
To get an education in this country, he's got to have a lot of guts, first of all, and to endure. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but this institution is like many other institutions, and which means it's a racist institution.
Amen.
There's no way around that. All the American institutions are racist. And to get an education under those circumstances is a tremendous act of the will. And also you risk schizophrenia. But I'm not saying this because I think black people should not be educated, but I am saying that black people very largely educate themselves. What you have to do is pick up the tools and with your own intention. That's the trick.
In 1955, United States District Court Judge William H. Atwell ruled against a plaintiff seeking to desegregate Dallas's schools, holding that the United States Supreme Court had overstepped its authority in Brown versus Board of Education. He did the same in 1957 when he decided against a case brought by the NAACP on behalf of two black Dallas children who wanted to attend a white school that was closer to their home than their black school. Judge Atwell was overruled by the Fifth Circuit in both cases. He later ordered that all Dallas schools be desegregated, but his plan was subsequently overruled by the Fifth Circuit on the grounds that it was unreasonable. In 1961, the Dallas School Board implemented a desegregation plan called the Stair-Step Plan under order of the Fifth Circuit. On September 6, 1961, 18 black children, which included 10 African American girls and 8 African American boys, started first grade classes in 8 different elementary schools, which had been, up until then, segregated schools for whites only. In 1967, the Dallas School Board declared that all Dallas schools would be desegregated, although many schools, in reality, remained segregated.
I'm thinking was if they could get to go to school with the white children, they'd have the material that they need.
With the help of Dallas Legal Services, Sam Tasby filed a lawsuit in federal court. His 16-year-old son, Eddie, was the named plaintiff.
It was the quality of education in the black schools versus the white schools.
Sylvia Demarest was one of the attorneys handling the case.
And it came down even to the fact that in many black schools, the textbooks that they were using were textbooks that were discarded from white schools. Teacher resources, library resources, the quality of the infrastructure itself, the buildings, all of these things, on balance to us, made it appear that it was not only separate, but it was not equal.
In 1970, a parent, Sam Tasby, filed a lawsuit in federal court charging Dallas ISD with continuing use of a dual school system prohibited under the Brown versus Board of Education decision. The lawsuit challenged the school district on this claim due to a policy that forced his sons to ride a city bus past a white school close to their home, near Love Field, to attend the closest black school in West Dallas. This lawsuit resulted in a second plan called the Confluence of Cultures Desegregation Plan. The new plan was rejected twice by the Fifth Circuit Court, primarily on the divisive issue of busing. During this period, black students felt unwelcome in their new schools, and parents of white students were continuing to pull their children out of Dallas public schools to attend schools in a different school district or private schools. The new judge on the case worked with the Dallas School District to remove busing long distances, particularly for younger children. Throughout the 70s and 80s, court action and litigation continued, with other parties, including the NAACP, joining in. In 1983, the Dallas School Board ended its fight against court-ordered desegregation with the Fifth Circuit Court ruling to uphold a third desegregation plan presented by Judge Barefoot Sanders. 3 years later, in 1986, Judge Sanders ordered the Dallas School District to make a diligent effort to recruit Black and Hispanic teachers. In 2003, the oversight ended when it was declared that the Dallas Independent School District desegregated schools, 49 years after the Brown versus Board of Education decision. Today, the community, central and campus staff, and parents work closely together to address the ongoing racial disparities in the district. Collaboratively, teams ensure equity by monitoring the allocation of resources, offering opportunities for all students to participate in rigorous learning, artistic programming, and specialized classes to support student achievement.